It feels like Groundhog Day when we talk about Brexit and incremental progress and the dramatic events of the latest parliamentary vote. But are we, in all seriousness, getting closer to a resolution or some amount of certainty?
Well, you're right. Brexit does have its own sense of time where lots happens and nothing changes all at the same time. So I think we are. I think we are inching closer to some sort of resolution. It's really going to come. It's very marginal. I mean, I think there are people in the United Kingdom who are very frustrated by this process, but it is important to get it right. And basically, because Brexit is such a big deal, what this recent amendment was about was to make sure that Boris Johnson doesn't get Britain out without a deal. Even though he's got this deal, it's still not impossible that either in the next week or so, or in the next 2 years, if we get into a transition period with between the European Union and the United Kingdom, that no deal could still happen. So that's what this delay was about. We're inching towards some sort of resolution one way or another, but it's still very difficult to call it or even sort of see which of the various possibilities might play out.
But in terms of the, turnaround we've seen from the DUP, what are your expectations there, particularly now that we're hearing from Labor that their door is always open to discussions? Is that a likely partnership, given that the DUP have in the past said that they're not interested in another public vote?
Yeah, look, I mean, there are all sorts of unholy alliances around Brexit, and the DUP feel that Boris Johnson's deal just left them, still left them out in the cold. And what they fear is that Brexit might, in some ways, inadvertently be the first step towards a reunification of Ireland, and that is something that they're absolutely opposed to. So it depends, how aggrieved they feel, whether they feel that a second referendum would be a price worth paying to kick this particular Johnson deal into touch. But like we say, that all the machinations around which party aligns with who and whether they want to delay the deal, get it through, or seek a second referendum, all these moving parts are in play at the moment, and we're going to have there's the likelihood of another meaningful vote on Monday London time. So lots of negotiations taking place right now.
But Ben, has Boris Johnson accomplished anything with this deal that Theresa May didn't? She, because all these Brexiters, these hardcore conservative Brexiters said, oh no, we couldn't possibly stay in a custom union, even temporarily, to resolve this Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland problem. She never got her deal through the Parliament, through House of Commons. And now it seems like Boris Johnson is ready to just throw Northern Ireland under the bus and keep them in a customs union, what they don't want, if he can get the bill passed.
Yeah, look, that's a really important point, and I think that this goes to something that's very important underlying this, and this is the Englishness of Brexit. We talk a lot about Britain. I mean, Brexit is a misnomer, really. It should really be called Ingexit, because this is driven by English concerns. And I think what you've picked up on is that if push comes to a shove, a lot of Conservative Leave voters, both MPs and especially grassroots and voters, would actually rather that the UK exited the EU than the UK stayed together. So in some ways, this is a kind of an inadvertent price that Northern Ireland, particularly the DUP, are paying for the very English concerns that are actually driving Brexit. We see something similar in Scotland, of course, in that Scotland is voters and the governing Scottish National Party are absolutely opposed to Brexit. And we are waiting for one of the Scottish courts. Scotland has a different legal system to the rest of the United Kingdom, one of the Scottish courts to make a ruling as to whether Boris Johnson, in sending these two letters, has actually breached the Ben Act. And this is where it got us into the whole Supreme Court thing about proroguing Parliament. So Scotland is a very important motor in this too.
Quick final question. Is there any doubt that the EU is going to grant this extension, which is a sort of a staggered extension? It goes way out in 2020 if the UK needs the time. Do you think it's going ahead, and will that make a big difference in helping or hurting Johnson?
Look, that's hard to say. I think it would be very difficult for the EU not to grant an extension, but people like Emmanuel Macron are not inclined to do that at all. So I think an extension would hurt Johnson electorally in the United Kingdom.